My name is Christina, I'm 32 years old, and I have PCOS. Hey everybody, as you know, my name is Christina and I have PCOS. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, hi, welcome back. I will say if you are new, you will probably want to watch the previous two videos about PCOS before watching this video, just to kind of understand what we're talking about a little bit and more about who I am. This way I just don't have to explain it over and over again. So with that being said, if you are new, hi, go watch those two videos. There's one really long one and the first one is kind of short, which is fine. If you have joined me again, hey, let's get ready for another topic about PCOS and let's kind of roll into it. So the last time that I left you guys, I was talking about how I found out that I had PCOS and my journey with PCOS. This led to these videos, which are going to be the informative videos. So in this video, I'm kind of going to go over a few statistics about PCOS, and I'm also going to talk about some terms that you guys should probably know, because I will be referring to them quite often, and if you don't know what they are, it just makes it a really long video if I have to go back and explain it over and over again. So let's just kind of jump into it and talk about the facts of PCOS. I have my trusty fact sheet here, so if you see me reading, that's why, which I'll try not to. Okay, so PCOS is very common in women. There's about 10 women who have it in the world. The exact cause of it is not known, which is very surprising to me because you would think by now that they would know why women have PCOS, so that kind of like threw me for a loop. There are some factors that run into it. Some of it's genetic, some of it's environmental, even hereditary. I mean, for me, I'll do a video about this, but I'm kind of going to talk to my parents and see if there's anybody on either side of the family who had PCOS. I think it's very important to know that kind of information. So that'll be a different video. We're going to talk about the facts right now and then we'll keep going. It is actually the leading cause in women infertility. Believe it or not, PCOS has a lot to do with infertility. And the reason being because it has something to do with your ovaries. And you know, when we have menses, our eggs drop, things like that. So it definitely is the leading cause in infertility. Now, the one thing that I tell everybody up to this video is that there definitely are a lot of physical and emotional things that come over your body when you have like feelings, emotions, just like physically you just have the, like, you know, there's sleep apnea, there's like hair that grows in various places, which we'll talk about, you know, in another video, but like there are so many things that take over your body physically and mentally and emotionally that you're just like, oh, I don't even know what to do with myself right now. So it's definitely like PCOS is definitely responsible. If you have any symptoms that you're not sure what they are, definitely talk to your doctor. I should disclaim I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. A lot of the information that I have came from the PCOS Association. They have a website that they post, and then the other one is from the health department. This is pretty much where I've found the most resources and the most factual information about PCOS. So this is where all of this is coming from. Okay, and the other thing that I kind of want to go over is that I found this interesting, to be honest with you. You can have PCOS without even having cysts. Like, how is that possible? How is it possible that you have PCOS without having cysts? Because it is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I'm definitely going to, as I have to do some more research on that, but it was surprising to me to find out that you could have polycystic ovarian syndrome and not have any cysts. So I think, you know, a number of factors probably lead into this, like your period stopping, the different traits that we were talking about, like your hair growth, just sleep apnea, things like that. Those are probably the physical signs that you probably would have from PCOS, and that's why it may not necessarily lead to you having cysts. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is the testosterone, the estrogen, and the progesterone. We'll get into that next. I'm going to talk about some terms here and kind of give you guys an idea. So testosterone definitely is an issue for a lot of women who have PCOS, as well as estrogen and progesterone. If your body is not producing those three things, then it is probable that you do have PCOS. My body tends to not produce a high amount of any of those, so it's really hard for me to have a normal cycle because of the fact that I'm not producing those three regularly, like not to say normal, but the average woman would. And again, my case of PCOS is very extreme, and you have to remember that each person who has PCOS, each of their cases are different. We're not all the same. We do have some of the same symptoms, the same signs, but we are all experiencing different things. So please keep that in mind when you're, learning about it, or if you think that you have it, your case may not be the same as mine. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, and it's very important. The other thing that I wanted to talk about too is that this is not cancer, and we've talked about this. This is not cancer, but there is no curable treatment. There's tons of things that you can do, and I'm going to get into a video about that, but, this is not curable. I mean, it's possible that it's reversible, but once you have PCOS, you will continue to have it for the rest of your life. Like, there's no, that's it. But again, it's not like cancer, but you definitely will have PCOS. And if you find something that reverses it, you're going to have to stick to that for the rest of your life. This is something that is not hey, I just reversed it, so let me go back to your old ways. Absolutely not. If you do that, your body's just going to continue to go back to where it was round one of trying to reverse it. I love my mom. I do. I love my parents, but I will say this. There are a lot of books out there that are helpful. I think that if you read them, they'll definitely help you to get a good balance of what you need to be doing if you're trying to reverse PCOS. But I will say this. Just because it worked for somebody, it may not be the right thing for you. And it may not be the right lifestyle. Like, my mom just bought me a couple of books, and it was like how to reverse PCOS diet. And I'm willing to try that stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that just because, it worked for one person, that it will work for everybody. So just keep that in mind, and just make sure that you have that extra layer of sensitivity for those who, are new to PCOS, or if they have PCOS and they understand their body and know their body, that they're trying to do the best that they can for themselves. And again, just because it worked for one person doesn't mean that it worked for the other one, will work for other people, because everybody's body is different. I can't tell you how many times I've taken all these different pills and supplements and it just hasn't worked. Because again, this is not something that's curable. It's not cancer, but once you have it, you will have it for the rest of your life. And this I found very interesting. I did not know this. So this is something that I learned brand new from researching. And this is something that I think is so important. I think this is why I actually wanted to do these videos, because there was so much stuff out there that I didn't know. I mean, my doctors were telling me based off of my condition and my body type, but I mean, I didn't know, as I itch my nose here, I didn't know that there were other factors and other different types. So there are 4 different types of PCOS. I'm going to talk about this in a separate video so that this video doesn't run very long. But I'm going to list them for you so that you know when we talk in the future what they are. So the first one is, it's insulin resistance, and you can kind of guess what that's about. The other one is inflammation based. The one that I personally, after reading about it, feel like I definitely have is the synthetic hormone pill-induced PCOS. And there's one called a hidden cause PCOS. So you can kind of guess what each one is about, but that doesn't mean that you know. So just remember, we're going to go through this. Okay. So now this is like the long and boring part of this video. we have a whole bunch of terminology for PCOS that is very important for you guys to know. Like I said earlier, these are things that I will be referring back and forth to, and it's on my list, so I feel like it should be not on yours, but I think it's really important for you guys to kind of have this as a base to go off of. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is, and if I botch this, it's okay. It's called amenorrhea, I think it is, amenorrhea, which is something that I have, which is a cease of your cycle for 3 to 6 months. And this is actually that has to do with your chromosomes. There's some irregularities, and it's an irregularity to your ovary, and your ovaries are insufficient. So I've actually been diagnosed with this like way back when, but by now it's been like 6 years since I've had one. So definitely something that you should think about if you are going to your gynecologist and you're like, hey, I haven't had a period in 3 to 6 months. I guarantee you I probably had this when I went to the doctor in college, because again, I told you guys in the previous videos I didn't have my period for 3 months. But instead of doing that, instead of saying, hey, you have this, she immediately didn't diagnose me. She immediately handed me birth control pills, and I feel like that led to what I now know is synthetic hormone and pill-induced PCOS. So we'll talk about that in a future video, but let's keep moving on. Now, the one thing I'm going to talk about next is something that I did mention, which is progesterone. Now, progesterone is commonly in women who are pregnant, but if you have PCOS, generally females produce progesterone, so it contributes to you having your period. And if you don't have a lot of it, your period is actually irregular, or you may not have any menses. So I don't have a lot of progesterone in my body, and I actually had to take progesterone prescribed by my doctor to help produce the period, so that we could figure out if it was just infertility or if my ovaries were just not working, if I was not dropping eggs, things like that. So if you have PCOS and you're taking progesterone, just know it sucks. There's no other way to say that. It just sucks. It sucks. It just gives you so many feelings, emotions. You're tired. Your body hurts. Like, it's the worst. But it will give you an end result of a period. But it's the worst. Like, I can't even begin to explain. So this is something that I learned is new. Instead of calling it PCOS, it will also be called PCOD, which is polycystic ovarian disease. And I think the reason why they changed it is because it is kind of like a disease. I mean, cancer is a disease, right? It's not just a syndrome or a symptom. So I think that's why they changed it to PCOD. It's referred to back and forth between PCOS and PCOD. I did look it up to see, and the definitions are the same. So the definition for PCOS is the same as PCOD, but PCOD, the definition says, the new name for PCOS, condition in which a woman has little to no period, she's infertile, there's excessive body hair, obesity, and her ovaries contain several cysts, and she's lacking estrogen. The next thing I want to talk about is point blank is ovulation. We all know that when you ovulate, you release eggs. If you're not ovulating, you don't release eggs. Okay, got it. So the next couple things are all brand new to me, right? I've never heard of them before. They're brand new. I didn't even know they existed. So the one thing that I'm going to talk about that's brand new is OHSS, which is actually, what I understand it to be, is the swelling of your ovaries, and it's used to stimulate your ovaries, which I don't know how you would do that. Like, I guess if you have IVF and they go in, like, they need to get your eggs out, they need to stimulate you. It just sounds very painful, to be honest, and I don't know, like, not for me. So that's one thing that I'm going to try to dive into a little bit more, because I have no idea what it is. ovulation, which is the infrequent release of eggs, which is probably what I have because I don't really release them at all, or I shoot blanks, and it's like the worst. I mean, I don't feel any of the pains, I don't feel any of the experiences, but I shoot blanks. It's just blank. It's weird. Now I'm going to botch this next one, and it is okay. It's called oligomenoria, which is, I've heard of this before. It's an irregular cycle so if you have a period, your period lasts longer than 35 days, or you only have 9 menses per year. Ooh, that would be really painful if you had a period that lasted 35 days. Just being real, that would be really, ow. I wouldn't envy you. I'm sorry, I have to be honest, I wouldn't. So that is definitely something. If you have a period longer than 35 days, you should probably be talking to your doctor, especially if it's really heavy. The next thing is HDL, which I don't like this definition because I think it's like pinpoint a specific type of person, and I'm not down with that. Okay. So it's good cholesterol, which I don't even know how this is possible. In women that are between 35 to 40 inches. What? Like waist? I don't know. I don't even know what my waistline is. I don't want to know. I don't. So let's not. Hey, we don't hate, we don't discriminate, we don't judge, okay? The next couple things definitely have to do with insulin and your metabolism, things like that. So let's talk about those. So metabolic syndrome is when your blood pressure is elevated, and you have high triglycerides, and it can actually lead to heart disease, diabetes, or a stroke. So if you get tested, if you have a glucose test by your physician or your gynecologist and your glucose levels are high, it will show if they're high and elevated. Because if you're like me, I should actually find my results. I have to get them somewhere. I have them. But if you're like me and you're like a cusp underneath, then you are definitely pre-diabetic. If you are right on that line, that's where this metabolic syndrome diabetes would happen. Like right on, like you're right there or over. And your doctor will explain that to you. Now, when they do your glucose test, they will ask you to fast. And that's actually why they had to test me twice for glucose, because the first time they tested me, they didn't tell me to fast and my glucose was way too high. And then they told me again, hey, you have to fast and test me again. It still was really high. So, but not to the point where I'm diabetic. I'm pre-diabetic. But I also found out that's hereditary because my father has diabetes, but different story, different day. I think he has diabetes, or he's taking metformin. I definitely know my Aunt Judy, I think she has diabetes too. So, but again, different story, different day, different video. The next term, I have never heard of in my life. Lean PCOS. Again, judgy. Why are we putting people in boxes here? So pretty much what they are saying that lean PCOS is if you're not overweight and you're skinny, or they're trying to put you on like a fat scale. That's not cool, people. Then you are lean and you have PCOS. Like, that's not cool. I don't like that. Can we just say like PCOS and like not put anybody in a box? Thanks. That's good. Cool. All right. Fix that. The next one is insulin resistance, which I talked about, which I have. So the way that my body works is when I eat bread, sugar, carbs, things like that, anything that has carb, pasta, whatever, sweets, the insulin in my body is not used effectively, and it actually elevates my blood sugar to make it very high, which is why I said I was pre-diabetic. And as you all know, that hormone that's involved is called insulin, and it allows the cells to use glucose for energy. And if your insulin is very high, you generally tend to have higher insulin and glucose levels if you have PCOS. Your body just does not process things like a normal functioning body does, and it stinks. Okay, the last thing, well, IVF we all know is in vitro fertilization, which we all know about, I've talked about. I've never heard of IVM. It's called in vitro maturatum. I don't really know. It sounds morbid, so yep, I'll have to put a giant question mark. I'm doing it right now. Next to that one, because I don't know. I'm not really sure. No. So that's our last term. If you have any PCOS terms that you'd like me to look over or that you know and you want to tell me about, please leave them somewhere in the comments below here, and I'd happily research it. But this is kind of how it's going to go. From here on out, we're going to kind of structure the videos so that they're very informational and, excuse me, and it's going to be just kind of like by each thing. So like the next thing that we'll talk about is a different kind of cyst, you know, and then we'll keep going with that, or symptoms, and then we'll follow suit with each of those things. I just think it's important. I think it's really important to talk about, as you guys know. Yeah, I just realized that my calendar in my office says September and we're in November, people. 43 days, I think, from Christmas. That's okay. Off topic. This has been very therapeutic for me, and I've learned a lot about myself through the process. I'm learning things that I did not know before, and questions that I have for my doctors going forward. I think are, you know, it's something I can go with a list. I have a book here where I do all my research and I write it all down. So this is good. It's a very like semi-therapeutic way for me to understand what's happening and to talk to other people. You know, again, I just ask that if you are a family member of someone that has PCOS or is struggling with infertility, please be sensitive to how they are feeling and know, like, it's a touchy subject for them. It really is. I mean, there are plenty of women in this world that want to be moms, and you know, so last week I work in childcare. I have literally, the people that I work for have 3 kids, and I literally was there the day that their child was born, like in the hospital. And I adore all 3 of them. They're wonderful. I've been there for a long time. But it's interesting to see the different relationships that I have with each of the kids. And I think I definitely have a different relationship with the last one who was born, because I was literally there the day that he was born. And, you know, my grandmother was saying, well, you know, she was like, children will change your life. She's like, you know, there's no other feeling like having a child. And I get that, and I understand that, but does that mean that my life is not fulfilled because I don't have a child? And that's kind of how I felt. No. I will be flat out honest with you, no. So I just ask that you be sensitive and be kind. Mainly the reason why this is coming up is because it recently came to my attention that certain people in the media have been talking about how they have conceived their children through IVF. And that's wonderful. But here's what I'm going to say. Where was the awareness about IVF, you know, like, and the help for people who have who need to get the infertility treatments? And the one thing that they said was, you know, I feel like as women, we all need to come together and talk and really make everybody aware of our bodies, because different women are aware of our bodies and things that are going on in our bodies, because we all have something going on. And I just wish that there was more awareness and more discussions and more things being done for women who are experiencing PCOS and infertility. It's like, it's costly. It's something that we should be talking about. And it's something we should be raising awareness about, because it is something that is happening more so than you think. And I always So it really like struck me hard when I was hearing that this person was just talking about it now. And I kind of wish that they had come out and talked about it beforehand, because maybe there was more that could have been done. Not to say that it coming out now is a bad thing, but I just wish that there was more that could be done. I can tell you right now, my health insurance does not cover infertility treatments. And it's really expensive to get on my husband, so... And I've talked about this before, I don't know if I could do that to myself. Anyway, segueing away from that, again, I just want you guys to know that this is stuff that you should know if you have PCOS, and we're going to talk about it a lot. So, if you have PCOS, and you feel, again, I always say this every time, if you feel alone, you are not. There are so many people who you think don't have it and do, and they may need somebody to talk to. So be that person who they can talk to, and just listen to them for 2 seconds. If they need to cry, if they need to talk, if they really need just somebody to lean on, be that person. And if you are experiencing PCOS and you don't know where to go to, just come talk to me. We can have a conversation, because I've been there, I've done that, I understand how hard it is to experience this alone. Because I experienced it alone for a really long time. And I'm not gonna lie to you, there are days where I still feel like crap because of the things that people say. So just know that it is okay to talk about it, and you are not alone. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining me this week. I know it was kind of more informative, but we're going to keep going there and keep talking. If you have any questions, some constructive criticism, or any comments that you'd like to leave, just leave them below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. All right, thanks so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye.